step back, puts up the three, got hit, shot's good, and one! James Harden double team, and a chance for a 4-point play.
Okay, welcome back to the DC Pod. I'm Christian, joined as always by Dallas diehard Darcy, where we cover all things basketball. Now, we are recording this Monday, the 19th of July. So it's the day after the night before, and the night before was the Game 5 blockbuster that we just all pretty much watched. If you didn't, you've been living under a rock. But I suppose with so much to go through, Das, one question to sort of kick things off is, did Phoenix lose this game or did the Bucks win it?
Bucks definitely won it, 100%. You could think about the final play with Booker and how he got stripped, but I thought Phoenix did almost everything they could to hold home court in this game, and the Bucks were too good.
Interesting. See, I think there's a great argument for both sides, because if you're Phoenix, you have a 16-point lead going into that second quarter, and then that obviously first 6 minutes of the second quarter was the killer there that let the Bucks get back into the game. So you can argue that if Phoenix really put the foot on the throat, that could be a 20 plus, 25 plus lead. Obviously, it's easier said than done, but I think you can make a great case for both sides. I know this sort of leans into how you sort of saw the series panning out with obviously predicting Bucks in 6 and the Bucks obviously taking Game 5. But you don't think at all that Phoenix would be kicking themselves about this, because 16-point lead in a finals game is quite a lot. I know it's today's NBA and a 16-point lead can evaporate, but I think if you're Phoenix, you're probably thinking, where did this go wrong? Especially the run they went on in the fourth quarter as well. I would lean towards Phoenix winning this game if there was an extra 2 minutes or if the game went to overtime, given the trend you were sort of seeing and how hard the Suns were pushing.
I think you're right that Phoenix had some opportunities and potentially would have changed a couple of things. But when I was watching it live, I thought the first quarter, Book was in the zone. He looked like the best player in the game. He looked unstoppable, was able to get to the basket, able to get his jump shot off whenever he wanted. And obviously that was fostering into the rest of their players being involved, and, all their bench players basically hit their first shots, whether it was Crowder, whether it was Bridges, whether it was, I think Torrey Craig even threw one up in the first quarter. So you can't expect that to continue the whole game, but they did come out absolutely guns blazing. And when they took Book out to start the second quarter, match the time on the bench with Giannis, obviously you touched about the run that Milwaukee made to start that second quarter. It was obviously got them right back in the game. And when I was watching it live, I'm thinking you should have been trying to put the foot down the throat, leave Booker out there, try to extend that to a 20, 25-point lead. But I probably give some foresight and some credit to Monty Williams, because without that rest, I don't know if Book would have been able to do everything he did in the second half, because he was truly carrying them. They were running the whole offense through him. He was carrying a heavy, heavy burden throughout the second half of the game. And if he didn't get that rest during that period in the second quarter, I'm not sure if Phoenix would have been able to claw their way all the way back. So I think you're right about how leads don't last as long in the NBA. But when the Bucks come out and, shoot the ball the way they did from 3, it's going to be difficult to hold a lead against a Milwaukee offense that's hitting on all cylinders.
Yeah, that's fair. But I just think in a do or die type game, you see, because look, it's not over. And it goes back to what I was saying to you in the last pod. I think both road teams will win the next 2 games. Bucks did it yesterday. I think Phoenix can somehow find a way. I still do have that belief, but just looking at it from that sort of angle, it's kind of like, do we want to go down 3-2 anyway and entertain that? So just looking at it now, and Booker came back, still not back. He came back 6 minutes. He basically came back when Giannis came back 6 minutes ago in that second quarter. So, I mean, if you see how the first 2 minutes of that second quarter is going, and clearly the Bucks are on a run, wouldn't you just bring Booker back in with, 8 minutes to go, 9 minutes to go to try and keep like a 5-point lead instead of literally relinquishing that whole 16-point lead? And by the time Giannis and Booker returned at the 6-minute mark, I think Suns were only up by 2 because Portis just got the and one from the offensive rebound from his own miss. So I think you've got to still rest whenever you can get it. And so if you end up playing Booker 46 minutes to avoid potentially going down 3-2, then so be it. He played 42 minutes. Ayton played 45 minutes. I'm not saying Booker playing an extra 2 minutes would have meant they won, but wouldn't that have put him in a better position?
I think it would have, and would have been tempted to do it for sure. But when I'm looking at the box now, and you're thinking about where was the impact from the bench from Phoenix's unit, if you don't give them, your bench players, that run second quarter, if you don't let them get into the game by playing meaningful minutes, then you can't expect them to hit a shot at all when it comes to their minutes in the fourth quarter. So I think it's a delicate balance where you've got to make sure you give your bench guys for Phoenix an opportunity to do something and to impact the game and potentially get you a little bit closer to getting a winning score, because they didn't really get anything out of campaign in this game. A couple of nice steals. I know Cam Johnson hit a big 3, but other than a couple of threes, he didn't really impact the game at all. So when you think about it like that, they rely heavily on their starting 5 in this one. And when you look at the production that they're able to give at the end of the game, they're all pretty spectacular from Phoenix. Ayton, 20 and 10 on almost 60% shooting. He got it done on the offensive end. Whenever there was an opportunity to roll to the basket, it felt like Payne or Paul or Booker were hitting him underneath the basket, and he was able to finish. Crowder was a little bit quiet, but still went 4 for 7, hit a couple of threes. A critical point in that second quarter run, I thought, was to start the second quarter, Crowder kind of heat checked himself and threw up a couple of, I thought, ill-advised threes, when I thought as soon as Booker comes out, you need to get straight to Chris Paul. You need to get straight to getting him quality looks at the basket and getting him involved in the offense. Chucking up a few early threes from Crowder, I felt like kind of allowed Milwaukee to get out in transition and score a couple of easy ones and cut into that lead easier than you would have thought. And you also got to credit Holiday for the way that he scored those buckets. He was really the key part in that run. And then also Mikal Bridges, who didn't really show up in the last 2 games offensively. He was a bit quiet in this one, but he ends up 5 for 6. He hit three from downtown. They were timely buckets, a couple of steals, and he did some really strong work defensively trying to get up on Middleton. So, some pretty good performances overall from Phoenix's unit. And, Chris Paul, a little bit quiet in the first half, but he definitely made it go in the second half. I thought he was pretty amazing, especially in that fourth.
Yeah, well, CP's always slow to get going in that first half. It seems to be a constant trend throughout the playoffs. For whatever reason, it's not for whatever reason. I understand that it's to get his teammates going, and then he looks for his own offense later in the game, and as you say, his age. So, look, that's understandable. I 100% am on board with your points there about the start of that second quarter. I wonder if it was, it must have been a directive, because to basically make or miss, get out and run straight away by Phoenix and get into some sort of pick and roll action. And it wasn't only Crowder that took a couple of ill-advised threes. I think Torrey Craig might have taken a very early 3 from the top of the key, and it might have been a more open look than what Crowder was taking. I think Crowder shot one off the backboard one time, and it was like, whoa. Right. But I think throughout the series, CP has spoken about that the team needs to play with pace, and that's a little bit different to what they were sort of doing throughout the regular season, because, we had spoken about it, how often that, their half-court offense was just so efficient, and they would always get great looks, even if they didn't knock them down. So,
and it allows them to get back and guard in transition, which they're great at, not giving up layups.
Absolutely. So, a little bit confusing that they decided to suddenly start doing that. And even in that second quarter, in that run, CP wasn't looking for his own shot. He seemed to just pass the ball up completely every time. And look, it happened a little bit in game 4. where CP would literally give the ball to Campaign in that second unit and just go like stand on the side. And look, I'm sure it's a combination of injury and age and potentially being fatigued and whatever, but the times now, if you're Chris Paul and Booker's not on the floor, it needs to be all you. So that was confusing because, as you say, that led to the Bucks going on that run, which was 25-12. So in the 6 minutes, Giannis was out. That they obviously outscore him there by 13 and cut the deficit completely. And it was Drew Holiday, as you say, like he scored or assisted on 19 of their 25 points when Giannis wasn't out. Like that's extraordinary. That's it, and it was complete opposite from what was happening in the first quarter, because if you remember, Drew Holiday picked up 2 early fouls and went to the bench.
Yep.
So he
did establish himself here. First basket of the game, comes off a screen, elevates over Paul and makes his first shot. It's got to feel good for him, a guy coming off a 5 for 20 game. And that's just a sign of, elite players who believe in their shooting, because he doesn't care that he shot poorly. He's going to come out there and attack, and he made his view, and he got on a roll. This was by far his best shooting performance of the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was capped off by a play he did in the third quarter, which we can get to, where it's effectively, by the time the second half rolls around, it's a 3-point lead in favor of the Bucks. And you knew that the Suns were going to come out and give a response, and that was most likely going to be through Booker. And so he comes out and scores in the first 4 minutes of the second half. He scores 10 points on 5 of 5 shooting straight away. But Middleton answers. Middleton has 9 points of his own on 4 of 5 shooting. And so you now start to see Chris, as obviously the third head to that snake, come in and start to get involved in the game. And that was pretty crucial from the Bucks. More important, just as important, I think, as a few other parts to the game was being able to hold off that initial Suns push. And they still held a 3-point lead after that first 4 minutes of the quarter. And then the Bucks with a few big plays like Middleton cutting to the rim and Giannis finding him. That was important. And then straight after that, Holiday strips Booker from half court. Booker literally just has the ball and he's dribbling it, and Drew just strips him, almost like, taking candy away from a baby. And he runs up the floor and he looks around and he goes, you know what, stuff it. And he just takes a pull-up 3 and he knocks it down. When he hit that one, similar to what you were saying,
they're rolling.
It's like, oh shit, like that's trouble. When Drew's hitting these type of shots, and then Giannis, I think, hits a jump hook in the lane, and now suddenly Phoenix are down 10 and they call a timeout. So, things can happen quick.
26-point turnaround.
Absolutely.
Huge.
Things happen so quick in this game, but I think the fact that you were able to get that Middleton part of it going in the second half was so important, because it was really, as you sort of say, Drew, Giannis just played an overall great game. I thought didn't really have to dominate scoring the ball, but some of his passing was just on time. He wasn't holding the ball too long. I know this just as much as anyone as a Philly fan. When you have a star player getting double teamed, you just want him to make the right decision. You don't need him to play hero ball. It happens a lot with Embiid, and you want him to improve in that. And so I was sort of looking to see how Giannis would handle the double team. I don't think, did he make one dumb error? He might have had one error where he just basically threw the ball up to someone who was cutting and threw it a bit too high. But overall, it was quick. He was getting the ball out of his hand. He was making the right play, and that's all you can really ask from a star guy. And I don't know what he ended up with assist-wise. Was it another 7 or 8 assist game? So that sort of continues the theme of just how impressive Giannis has been, in the fact that if they've limited his scoring, he's made up for it in assisting the ball, getting others involved, continued to rebound throughout the whole series, continued to play stellar defense. He's such a likable guy as well off the court. He's putting together quite a resume on this postseason alone, I think.
Yeah, no doubt. He was another 6 assists for 0 turnovers today in the game. For a guy who looks so tired and he's playing such heavy minutes, plays over 40 again. No, he was absolutely awesome. I think we roll back a little bit to what you're saying about how, during that run that the Suns, you talk about Chris Paul telling his team to play a little bit faster. This is a series. These series become a real dogfight, and the further we go along, the other team knows exactly what you're running. So you need to be able to have an element of playing random and playing something that's difficult to guard. And when the limited stops, the limited amount of times that Phoenix were able to get stops, they really have to use that opportunity to go and play in transition, try to get something early and just to mix it up, variation for what they've got offensively. But the Bucks, they were extremely strong on the glass once again. They, particularly on the offensive glass, it felt like whenever they needed a big rebound, they were able to come, whenever they had a tough shot that was heavily contested, they were able to get an extra tap out and a big rebound. A lot of PJ Tucker, a lot of Bobby Portis, and a lot of Pat Connaughton again, in that role on the offensive glass were awesome. I think during that second quarter run, Connaughton, he came straight off the bench, sees his first look go straight in, and then goes whack, whack. He hits 2 threes so quickly. Unbelievably, he's now leading the finals in made threes. Pat Connaughton, your X Factor guy. So that's not something you would have anticipated at the beginning, but he was absolutely monumental for them in this one. And I thought in some ways it helped Milwaukee's offense by Connaughton playing 33 minutes, which I think is high for the series. PJ Tucker only 24 due to some silly fouls that put him in foul trouble. So in some ways that worked towards Milwaukee's benefit. And Bobby Portis was really impactful in his minutes. He hit a couple of big threes during that run and one again in the third quarter. And crucial offensive rebound in the fourth quarter as well. So an all-round performance from the role players from Milwaukee. If you talk about, what you're going to get from Giannis and what you're going to get from Middleton, considering how well he played in game 4, but then you also get a good performance from Connaughton and Portis and out of this world performance from Drew Holiday with 27 and 13 assists to go with 3 steals on 60% shooting. Yeah, he was basically phenomenal. And those points you make about Giannis, they're all true. The way that he's developed his game and the way that he picks his spots, and he's just getting it all in the flow right now. He's doing everything for their offense, and it's not necessarily all with the ball. And you got to think that, there's a guy who you'd love to play with, a guy who does all the dirty work on defense. If he gets a steal or he gets a rebound, he's out in transition, running down the middle for a huge dunk. In the half court, he's absolutely willing and able to set multiple screens to get you open. And in the pick and roll at the top of the key, whether it's Holiday or Middleton, him as a rolling option has just been so goddamn effective this whole series. And he's shown the whole package. If he rolls and he's not open, he can post up, he can shoot the one-legged fadeaway. He had one absolutely beautiful, just a little jab step, long jump shot on 8, and then the fourth quarter that just went all net. And then you go, if he's making that, you just can't stop this guy. He also took it to the basket well and finished under contact. He basically did everything that Milwaukee needed from him throughout the whole game. And I think it's pretty close to a perfect performance for the Bucks. Probably the only blip is the free throw shooting. He ends up 4 of 11. When you're looking at the box score, that's probably the only thing that stands out as someone who didn't shoot well was Giannis. Whether that's him being tired or him getting iced under the pressure of fourth quarter free throws, that's probably the only thing that kept Phoenix in it there right at the end.
And then, to sort of extend off that, he gets, the tap back to Middleton off the offensive rebound, and then Middleton gets down for the free throws. So, as you say, he's doing about all you can ask. And I would go back to your point that you make about, the Bucks playing or in the NBA Finals with each side knowing each other, like the back of their hand. You need to play random. And there was a clip of Bud, I'm sure you would have seen it, where he's in the locker room and he's telling his team, play random. And a lot of people made fun of that. Basically, it was if, Bud was telling his team to do whatever they want. And, we've got no real idea of how to beat this team. But playing random is his version of saying, play off instincts, play what you see, play what's in front of you. Don't preempt stuff. Don't have in your head, you've got to run this play and that's all you can do. And it's been effective for them as much as it's, criticized and made fun of about Bud. And I've sort of been one of those guys in the past. If his team's one win away from winning a championship, there's not really too much you can say about Bud. I think he's had a good series where sure he might have over-adjusted in the first game, but it's kind of the Ty Lue thing. I'm getting those vibes where you just experiment because there's no way of finding out what you've got in guys, what schemes work without trying it. You can't base it off regular season games. You can't guess. It's literally you've just got to put it in action, and it's kind of trial and error and see what works. And you can obviously potentially afford to do that in a thing like a game 1, but you can't afford to do that in a game 3 or a game 4. So at the end of the day, you've probably got to give a lot of credit to Bud, because now we haven't seen any, Forbes, and he's made the right decision to really limit the Lopez minutes when it seems as though things are trending in the right direction for Phoenix, and playing Giannis more at the 5, and then also throwing in Portis out there. And as you've said, that's obviously a key thing for the best offense when Portis is out there, being missed shots, because he crashes. You have Connaughton that crashes. You have Tucker that crashes, as you've just mentioned. So there's a lot to take away from the Bucks' perspective. That I know at the start of the pod I was saying this is what Phoenix lost, but again, it goes back to the other team can be playing as poorly as you like, but you've still got to go out and win it. You've still got to make big plays. And what we saw in the fourth quarter, the Suns were coming, right? So CP hits that baseline fadeaway over Giannis. That was quite nice. And I marked that down because that reduced the deficit to 6. So 5 minutes left. And, here comes Phoenix. And you think, well, how can they get, back on track? And how can the Bucks find an answer? Because they were definitely looking tired as a group. And here comes Chris Middleton, right? The closer. He now does it again. Hits the deep 2 over Crowder and gets fouled while making the shot. That pushes the lead back out to 10. And then a couple of minutes later, he hits a wing 3 with the shot clock running down over Bridges with time running out.
That was Curry-esque.
And that pushes the lead back to 8, Dust. So those 2 plays in particular, just a couple of momentum killers for Phoenix, right? Because you're pushing hard, crowd's on your side, you're cutting into the lead. Things seem to be going okay offensively, but just some daggers there to really, because they were pretty good defense from Phoenix. It's about as good as you can ask, but it's just better offense, as we hear in NBA commentary all the time. Doesn't matter how good a defense you play, some better offense always wins. So I thought credit to Middleton for closing and showing up again in the late stages of the game, but this time on the road. So there's not really too much more you can say about him these last 2 games in particular.
Mate, he's been absolutely awesome. But they got the perfect balance. Holiday basically got them to that point in the fourth quarter with all of his scoring and contributions on the offensive end. And then for Middleton to step up in the fourth quarter, it was exceptional. There's some great defense on those plays as well. Really, really tight defense and just superior shot making. Just when he hits those, you can feel the momentum of the game just swinging. Those feel like almost knockout blows. They're going for the championship with these shots. They've really got a lot of momentum and a lot of weight behind them. They were huge makes. And I think you talked well about how through the game they found their rhythm. Milwaukee with their offense. They were playing random, but they were playing. Players were searching out their spots, whether it was Holiday or Middleton throughout the game. They were able to come off screens. They were doing a lot of snaking off screens to continue keep their dribble alive, keep Ayton hesitating whether he was going to come up and help. And if there was enough for him to hit the jump shot, they did it. And they shot the ball extremely well in that position. So I thought that kind of tactic from them offensively, staying, coming off the on ball, staying engaged, thinking about when I'm going to get the shot off, and then seizing that opportunity when they had a bit of look. I thought they did that all game long really well. And then it was highlighted by Middleton's, elite clutch shooting at the end of the fourth quarter. And for me, toward down the stretch, I kind of highlighted after those Middleton shots, they had a 6-point lead with 2 minutes to go. So if you think about back in game 4, it got down to a tied game with 2 minutes to go. And there was a couple of errors, a couple of misplays by Chris Paul really let Phoenix down the end of game 4. In this game 5, they were down 6 with 2 minutes to go. And then it was Chris Paul who made huge plays, whether it was that big 3 at the top of the key, or you just talked about that lovely jump shot over Giannis on the baseline. And then after a clutch stop that they got, where Middleton ended up being trapped in the corner and they had to call a timeout and then missed a shot, CP3, made a great spin move on Connaughton straight to the basket for an easy 2. And it felt like, the roof of the stadium is going to blow off because it's now a 1-point game with about 30 seconds to go. So Phoenix really did well to put themselves in a position to potentially win the game, despite everything that Milwaukee was doing so well throughout the game. It looked like they didn't have they didn't have any way to stop Giannis, but they were right there, 1 point down with 30 seconds to go. And you just got to look at the efficient shooting of the Suns throughout the whole game. They end up 13 of 19 from three. So they're shooting almost 70% from the 3-point line and somehow didn't win this game. 10 of 11 from the line. They didn't waste any there. They're relatively good with the ball and the 8 turnovers, after such a heavy turnover game in game 4. Overall shooting the ball at 55% from the field. So they didn't do a lot wrong, Phoenix. They really set themselves up to have a big punch at the end of the game. And I think when it comes down to it, you would never be shocked with them putting the ball in Devin Booker's hands, but I was thinking that potentially CP3 would have been the guy to go to in that last possession when they were able to get a stop, 20 seconds to go, and Monty Williams doesn't call a timeout. He lets him roll, doesn't let the defense get set, which I thought was the right call. And Booker takes the ball on himself and looks like he's going to go drive on Tucker and get a shot. And for me, I thought that Booker potentially, he dribbled maybe too far into the key. I thought that he had a jump shot right there over PJ Tucker in the middle of the key potentially.
It's just a heady decision from Drew Holiday to sneak up from behind, catch him as he's turning his back, and just pure strength and ability to steal that ball. It is risky going for a steal at that stage of the game and potentially fouling Booker as well. So absolutely big time play from Holiday, and we know what happens there. The finals defining moment where Holiday makes the strip, goes full court, gets out to the wing, and then who else but the fittest guy in the game, the strongest guy, the 2-time MVP, who looks like he basically never gets tired and can just play through whatever. Giannis goes full court, asks for the alley-oop, throws it up. It was a punctuation on a monster game from the Bucks, and he drew the foul on CP3 on the M1 alley-oop as well. So that's a play that we'll remember forever about this game and probably about this series. And I don't want to put too much on Booker for that, because they would not have been there without him. The way that he scored the ball all game long, I thought there was only a couple of moments maybe in the fourth quarter where he tried to do a little bit too much and put up some shots that were not there. But overall, I thought he was outstanding, and it's just those that defining moment that'll be Milwaukee's for this game. They were able to strip it off him at the crucial time and get that momentum building alley-oop on the other end. It's a game of moments when Phoenix gave themselves a chance to be right there, and it just went Milwaukee's way this time. And I don't think you can put too much on Phoenix for that. I think Milwaukee just stepped up in a big time way.
Yeah, well, that's a really interesting point you make about the CP3 Booker debate for that Phoenix offense down the stretch. And look, I would agree with you, other than probably the fact that Booker made what I call the Dallas play. So CP3 has the ball on the wing, and Booker gets the screen to basically come across and hit that three that, he hit against Dallas that you will remember from the regular season there. And that play didn't work. Clutch. It didn't work. It was just too good of offense, because neither of the screens that Booker ran past were able to stop Drew Holiday. He was still able to keep a trail on Booker. And if you watch the replay, they did obviously a close-up. Like, that was perfect contest without fouling. Absolutely perfect contest. And Booker still hits a three fading away. He wasn't able to really get set. So
Where did he get the legs for that?
Exactly. So I think after making that, it was probably like, okay, he probably is feeling himself. At the end of the day, CP3 only did get a layup. It's not like CP3 hit 4 jumpers in a row and was really feeling his mid-range game like we've seen throughout the playoffs, whether it be against Denver or, against the Clippers there to close things out. So I think it is definitely a fair debate. And looking back at it now, it's kind of the what if it was CP3 that had the ball in that kind of thing. But you could say the same then for game 4, because they almost each took their turn. So CP, obviously, if everyone remembers, down 2, 30 seconds left, he gets a screen, goes around the pick and obviously slips or gets stripped, one of the two. And that obviously leads to the Middleton layup for them to go up 4. And, you could say maybe the ball should have been in Booker's hands, because, again, he was cooking in that game 4, dropping 40 and basically doing whatever he wanted from that mid-range. I don't even think he made a 3 in that game 4. So Just as much as today, you can say, should the ball have been in CP's hands? You can probably say in game 4, the ball should have been in Booker's hands. So it's an interesting debate. I think it's one that can definitely go on for a while, and you can make a valid case for both sides. But I think the thing I would come back to, and I did sort of, after seeing it happen in game 2 and thinking that the Bucks still had a chance to win, even though Booker had a really good shooting game, 7 of 12 from deep, was I think the Bucks strategy of obviously letting Booker go off has meant that they can kind of withstand that because they have the scoring in a Middleton, and if they can get some contributions through, some other guys like a Connaughton, like a Portis, and then if you can get just a little bit from Drew Holiday, like they got way more than they probably expected from Drew today, and you obviously know Giannis is going to be Giannis, then they feel like that puts themselves in a good position to win. And we've spoken about game 2 in particular, how timely the Suns' shots were to really hold off the Bucks when they were pushing hard. And so after I think the Bucks figured out that if they, cut the head off the snake of the Suns, which seems to be Chris Paul, that, they can't survive if Chris Paul gets going, but they can survive if Booker gets going. And now we have obviously, 2-game sample of that where Booker's had some otherworldly performances scoring the ball. It didn't. He was making Drew Holiday look like, a cone, and Booker was just going through off-season workouts, putting up shots. It's ridiculous, like the groove and the sort of rhythm he's in offensively. And there's been a few times where he's literally been, and I don't think we give enough credit to Booker's strength, right? Where he's been able to muscle his way in and really create space just through that. So to get his shot off, as opposed to having skill, and that's made him a really big threat that could really take his game to a whole new level. And if he can continue that in the regular season and become a 30-point guy a night, then it's something that will be scary for the rest of the league. But is it fair that if Booker gets going, that that's probably maybe not the best thing for the Suns, because potentially other guys get out of rhythm and don't get their touches? And just sort of what I said from game 4 and yesterday, as maybe it's a 2-game sample and it's, a bit of luck is involved with, Phoenix having some crucial turnovers in the last 30 seconds of each game. But is it fair to say that, they can still win with Booker going off? Is that a strategy they should probably, or they should be pretty happy with? Or is there a potential bit of, we got lucky here, but it seems to be working? I really don't know how to look at it, but you can only really go off what you've seen in the results. And that's Booker's gone off and they've still lost, other than that game 2 where he hit 7 of 12 from deep. So that's just sort of how I see it.
Well, yeah, I would agree that it's potentially in Milwaukee's interest to, focus on shutting down other guys, because a lot of these shots that Booker's hitting, you said there's some great defense there. That's, if guys are going to hit those shots, at some stage you have to tilt your hat. And if you start doubling a guy like Booker, then you really open up the opportunity to get hurt in the corner 3-point game, which Phoenix is excellent at. And even though they shot, they made 13 threes in this game, shooting close to 70%, they didn't have a necessary, a barrage of threes where they got into the lead, extended to a 10, 15-point lead. Besides that first quarter, where I mentioned where Crowder hit a couple and then Torrey Craig hit a big one. But they've been able to kind of make Booker work really hard for those buckets. And obviously on the other end, they're making him defend really hard with the way that Middleton and Holiday are attacking. So I think that strategy is good for the Bucks. But at the same time, Phoenix, they don't have that much option. If they're able to get 20 points out of Ayton, there's not much more that they can ask. They're getting some interior presence from him. I thought he had some really nice touches around the rim, some nice finishing in this game, Ayton. But I'm not sure where else they can go for scoring. They get 20 from Paul. They get over a dozen from Bridges. Probably Crowder could give them a little bit more, but I don't know if they can trust anything else they got on the bench. So from Phoenix's perspective, they just need to continue to play through Booker, but also just find a way to get other guys involved from, more than likely from the 3-point line. And I think they might need potentially an even bigger game from Paul. I don't think he can wait around to the second half to pick up, 15 points and get him to 20. I think he needs to aim maybe 25 to 30 points potentially to help them close this one out, because, he's such an efficient shooter. It's just a matter of him having to work extra hard and put in extra effort to find more shots earlier in the game and keep the scoreboard rolling over. But, on the flip side, if Milwaukee don't shoot the ball as well, then Phoenix will be right in the game, and they can potentially control it with the way that Booker's playing, because that's what happened in game 4. Booker controlled the game. They were leading the whole way through. It felt like, how are Milwaukee going to get back this 10-point lead when Booker's just hitting every tough shot? So there's no way that you could say that the series is over despite the momentum being towards Milwaukee, because, Booker's in an absolute zone, and they got some big performances today, and the pressure is off them, Phoenix, for this game. They're not expected to win. They probably have a lot of faith in themselves, and they're probably pretty pissed off that they let a couple of games go, whether it was this epic in game 5 or again they had a strong lead in game 4. I think they're probably a little bit pissed off and a little bit eager to prove something big time on the road. And if you're a Phoenix fan, you're probably thinking, hopefully we don't see 4 out of 5 threes go down for Connaughton, and hopefully we can stop Portis getting so many offensive rebounds, and maybe Drew Holiday will miss a shot or two.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that leads us into game 6 on Wednesday, I think it is, or is it Thursday? I can't seem to get my days right with the gaps between each game at the moment. But if it's not Wednesday, it's Thursday. So good little break there. And I think this game 6 is going to be a low scoring affair, Das. I think with Milwaukee having the opportunity to close it out, they're potentially going to be a little bit tight, and things won't flow as naturally as they probably would hope for. Buckets are going to be tough to come by, and there's going to then be Phoenix who are just desperate to force a game 7 and take things back to their building, which I'm sure they'd be confident in being able to win at home. So, you obviously see the variety of fans that are there for Phoenix and all their moments they've had with their crowd, and Suns in 4, and the guy, bashing the shit out of that Denver guy, and all of those things we've seen. And then yesterday, the money guy. So there seems to be a real, variety in Phoenix, and that sort of leads to the home advantage, and a big one. And it makes the thought of a game 7 so exciting. And obviously I'm predicting it. I'm hoping for it. But on the flip side, it's gonna be so hard to get a win in Milwaukee, because that crowd is just as good. And you've mentioned it before with Deer District, and how loud that arena is. So you obviously have them closing it out. But would you be surprised if Phoenix were able to get it done?
I think I probably would be surprised. I think because even though I know Phoenix have been great this postseason, and Booker's really proven something incredible about him, and shown that he's as good as any of these guards in the league. Hayden's shown us a lot, but I think the depth is just the problem. If you've got Holiday balling out of control, and you've got Middleton, who's obviously in a great groove, basically him and Booker are going tit for tat now in this series. They're both in the zone. But then you've got Giannis. To me, he's the best player in this series. And if things get tight, I can see Giannis going downhill and drawing a foul and walking to the free throw line. That's really where the difference is, in terms of when Milwaukee can't get a basket, they're going to go to Giannis, and he's going to bash and bully his way into the paint. And I just don't feel like Phoenix has the size to contend with him. I think, when you look at the free throw disparity, it's basically Giannis is the only one, being able to get there with ease. He gets another 11 attempts in the game yesterday. And with the Phoenix side, none of them are really getting to the free throw line. Ayton got hacked a couple times, but that's, only because they're in deep rotations. They don't want to give up a dunk. And Booker, with all his effort and his shot faking, he's able to draw a few fouls as well. But the rest of the Phoenix team, I don't really see them being able to get to the paint. As kind of, they rely on that mid-range shooting from their studs, and then the 3-point line is, they live or die by it in this game, Phoenix, I think, on the road. So that's why I will lean towards Milwaukee, especially if it's a tight, slow game that they can control the paint and potentially get the better of them on the offensive glass. And if Giannis can knock down free throws like he did in that monstrous Game 3 performance, then I think it's going to be very difficult for Phoenix. But his free throw shooting is extremely up and down, so maybe he'll feel the pressure of a closeout game and struggle at the line as well, and might give Phoenix a chance. But I don't think we're in any danger of seeing a blowout in this game. The way that this Game 5 was played, it was unbelievably close. Both teams really showing that they've got some serious ticker and they've got a little bit left in the tank. So, yeah, just a one-off game right now, and it's basically 50-50. But for me, I'll probably lean to the Bucks. I think they're smelling the opportunity. There's no LeBron James on the other side. There's no Stephen Curry. There's no all-time superstar who's won multiple championships. They're looking at a pretty young Phoenix team who are now facing their first elimination game of the playoffs. And I think Milwaukee smell blood and they know what they have to do.
Well, that's the point, right? We haven't seen Phoenix facing an elimination game yet. So it's it'll be really intriguing to see how they come out. Maybe they come out tight. And it's both two teams. It's who can just win a couple of those moments that we've spoken about so often throughout these final series. So, gosh, it goes without saying that you probably need 70 plus, right, from just CP and Booker alone. And then it's what can you get from the other guys, and I think you're spot on with the shooting that you're going to need from the perimeter. And I think you've gotten just about all you can out of Cam Johnson. So I think it's harsh to look at him and say maybe we can get some more out of him. Look, you're probably getting as much as you can out of Ayton. I think 20 points is his max. And then
Johnson in that last game, an unbelievable -19. So
really,
the bench unit significantly outplayed. -7 for Craig, -4 for Campaign. So.
Well, I think that number in particular with Cam Johnson would have really hurt him because he probably would have been in there to start the second quarter, right? So when Milwaukee went on that run, that obviously is going to really hurt his plus minus.
It was Paul and Crowder with Johnson, Craig, and Payne. So the small defensive lineup for Phoenix, if they're not able to hit threes on the other end, it's eventually starting to hurt them, and it really magnifies the loss of Saric and their lack of front court depth.
Yeah, and look, I think the last few games we're starting to see, and it's really been a lot of the finals. I'm not sure we've gotten much out of Campaign. So potentially it's starting to regress back to the mean where it's like this isn't a guy who you can potentially rely on to come in and score 15 plus on a regular basis. It's just take what you can get from him. And more often than not, from what I've seen, when Payne comes in, Booker is almost the de facto LeBron, where he sets up everything and everything runs through him. And Campaign's more of, the scoring type scorer, out on the field. So you're going to need something from him, because I spoke about it with Game 4 leading into Game 5, that the Bucks had so many wild cards that could really show up for him, whether it's a Lopez, a Connaughton, a Portis, that could give you, a really nice spark of points that you don't expect. Well, now on the road, Phoenix are going to need not only 70 plus out of CP and Booker, but they're going to need someone unexpected to come in and drop 15, whether Torrey Craig can hit 3 threes. Can Campaign come in and, just like I've just spoken about, can he give you 15 points? Because you're getting as much as you can out of Cam Johnson. Can Crowder make 4 threes?
Yeah.
They're going to need some stuff. Can Bridges show up on the road?
Anything on the road.
Exactly. So, look, I probably can settle on this, but I think Phoenix somehow find a way to get it done. I just think, as you say, there's an aspect there where it's now all on Milwaukee. And as much as Milwaukee have shown up so far in really important moments, this is a championship now that's on the line. So, gosh, I can't wait for this, Das.
If it's close in the fourth quarter, I think we're going to see some extremely nervous players. No doubt it'll be a good one. I'll be interested to see if Phoenix, they've got to leave it all on the line. So whether there's an adjustment, whether there's, some kind of last gasp change in their defense or something. I know they mixed in a tiny bit of zone in this game 5 to try to stop the run that Milwaukee had. I'd be interested to see if Phoenix employ that again and how that might turn out, because if you go into a zone in this situation, you're potentially leaving yourself open to get shot out of the game with some 3-point shooting from Milwaukee. But on the flip side, if they miss those, then you get some easy buckets in transition, which Phoenix was few and far between basically in the last couple of games. So, we'll have to see what's in Phoenix's kitchen sink, because they're going to have to throw it here.
Yeah. So look, I'll probably say it's going to be 103-101. The game goes to overtime, and I'm going to say Booker hits a go-ahead shot. And who am I going to say doesn't get it done? I'm going to say Middleton has a chance to tie things up and potentially take it to double OT or go for the win and comes up short. So that's my official prediction. So Phoenix escape with the 103-101 overtime, low scoring, grit and grind type game. And we get the game 7 that should be hopefully an epic.
Here's hoping. I think from my side, I'll take Giannis to be the leading scorer in this game. Probably going to shoot close to 20 free throws, I think. And then probably the biggest clutch shot of the game, I think, will be hit by, I'll say Holiday, because they'll probably have to double Middleton the way that he's scoring it in the fourth quarter.
As you mentioned on the last pod, how important Cambage, however you say her name, was going to be for the Opals, and now she's not even there for them in the Olympics. So
big three.
That's obviously a game changer for them.
Yeah, if we transition over to the Olympics and what's happening, the Aussie Opals did beat the US team in a practice game, an exhibition game. So we should mention that. That's 2-0 for Australia versus the USA so far, leading up to this Olympics.
Yeah.
And no Cambage in that game. It's really interesting. She's a very polarizing player. She's a lot of drama attached with her being part of a team, and you see she's citing mental health issues as a reason to step away from the team. But I think it just feels like she's a little bit of a distraction right now for what's going on with the Boomers and the Opals. They're focused on doing it the right way and trying to bring home some gold for Australia. So if she's not 100% on board with helping that out, then probably for the best that the Opals have gone forward without her. Still wish her the best, because we want Australian players, a person of her stature and her level in the WNBA. We really want her to, we want her to be successful, and we want her to represent Australia the right way. So hope that she's able to come back from this quite bizarre series of events. But on the other hand, we look forward to seeing what's happened in the next couple of weeks, because there's going to be a lot on between this ending in game 6 or game 7 to the finals. We've got the draft coming right around the corner, and a lot of interesting prospects and a lot of moves for teams that could be relevant sooner rather than later. And right after that, we're rolling into some big time Olympic games, and thank God there's some basketball to watch at least for another couple of weeks before the NBA season's closing.
Yep, and then obviously with the US men's side, they've had some interesting things with obviously Beal health and safety protocols. He's not going to be there for them. And who's the other? Was it Grant or someone else got?
Jerami, yeah.
Jerami. And, he might not play a big role, but he was going to be important for his defensive versatility. And we've sort of started to see in a lot of these FIBA games and be reminded about how a guy like that could potentially play a pretty big role, given obviously the way that the FIBA style goes, and the whistle isn't blown as much as it is in the NBA for touch fouls and whatnot. So interesting as well from the US side of things, and bringing in JaVale McGee and Keldon Johnson from the Spurs. So a little bit of hometown love there, I think, from Pop bringing in Keldon, because there are a lot of good people they could have brought in. I know Trae Young was trying to get in there. Why not bring him in?
It's the second time in a row that Pop's been able to fill that last roster spot with the Spur. Last time it was Derek White who got the backup point guard role for the team at the World Cup, and now it's Keldon Johnson. Keldon Johnson looked quite tough in that game against Australia, actually. He's a pretty solid bloke, Keldon Johnson.
Built, yeah.
Athletic and built. So, no, I think he'll be all right, a good little defender for them. JaVale McGee, it's an interesting one. You're not sure how much you could rely on him in a tight Olympic game situation. But on the other hand, he is a genuine 7-footer, and they don't have any of those on the team right now. So I think if you take out Kevin Love, who I don't know really what he was giving you at all, you bring in someone who can at least protect the rim and be a lob threat and throw down some big dunks. And I'm sure, McGee's good for a locker room. He's good for the morale of a team as well. You only got to see the championship teams that he's been on that players genuinely like him. And I think USA team will probably be a little bit tougher just because of it.
Yeah, 100%. Look, it wouldn't surprise me if Kevin Love was a bit like, oh, it's going to be a bubble. Do I just pull out now and potentially enjoy my off season bubble free and not having to travel to Tokyo? And yeah, so interesting. He says his body isn't at peak performance, so he isn't in peak condition, so he wouldn't be able to deliver the performance that he felt like Team USA and all of them deserve. So, I mean, whatever. I don't know if Kevin Love in peak condition can what he can deliver anymore anyway. So, interesting that he sort of leaves. But yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on that and see how they go. And Keldon might actually end up being a positive for their team, because potentially one less scorer now without Beal that they need to worry about putting the ball in his hands and potentially looking to keep him happy. We obviously know his role with Washington isn't really to play a terrible amount of defense. So now that they have a guy like Keldon that's potentially much more inclined to play defense and not demand the ball every possession, that could end up being a blessing in disguise for him.
See, Washington picked up a new coach as well. They got Wes Unseld Jr.
No idea about him.
So his dad, Wes Unseld, he was the Finals MVP on Washington's only NBA championship. So he's kind of ingrained in the Washington franchise. He was an assistant coach there for over 5 years. He's been an assistant coach with the Warriors during a championship run, and I'm not sure who he's been with recently the last few years, but he's basically been an NBA assistant for the last Denver. That's right, with Mike Malone. So I think it's been 11 years or something with him on the bench, and another African American coach who's been given a gig as a first time head coach in the NBA. So there's really nice change for that, and good opportunity in Washington with a really strong team with, a team who went to the playoffs with Beal and Westbrook, couple of interesting young pieces. And I think, from a coaching standpoint with that team, it'll be interesting to see what he does. And I think Washington have potential to make a couple of moves and definitely bolster their front court to potentially make them more of a contender in the East.
Yeah, we'll see. They need to start with playing some defense first. So we'll see if this new coach can find a way to instill that in the group. But that takes care of things, Dos. So obviously appreciate you for your insights that you bring always, and thanks to everyone for listening. And we'll be back in the next few days whenever Game 7 is, Wednesday, Thursday, or Game 6.
It's Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Game
Wednesday.
6.
So there you go. So tomorrow's the rest of today and tomorrow is obviously nothing. Maybe some Olympic qualifiers. I think USA is playing Spain today for the men's side of things. So last time to potentially see
Spain.
See a bit of that before the Olympics. But yeah, so we'll be back Wednesday Arvo then to do a podcast or first thing Thursday to recap. But yeah, that's it. Appreciate everyone, and we'll be back to speak very soon.
Stay safe, guys.
See ya.